In order to spawn the second boss, you need to clear all of the blaze-bound destroyers in this room. This mob pulses group damage and also has a single target dot that explodes at the end. You can actually stand by enemies with this circle dot and the explosion will knock them up if you're running out of stops. Cinder Weavers are casters that should be kicked as much as possible because their bolts really hurt. Lastly is the Flame Dancers. Their cast is Flame Dance, and it's very similar to the Slam from earlier. Stun or disrupt that, or it will deal massive group damage. On the other side of the circle, you'll run into another dragon mini-boss, Flame Goulet. This mob has a similar frontal as the other dragon, however his mechanic is that he pulses increasing damage once you take him below 50% health. This means if you accidentally pull him or you're in trouble, you can choose not to damage him and he won't do much until he drops below that 50% threshold. The second boss is Kokia Blazehoof. This boss summons a fire elemental that has to be kicked. The elemental gets spawned on top of ranged players, so try to stand in a position that's safe for the rest of your team to hit it if you're ranged. He also throws a meteor that explodes when it hits a wall, dealing large damage. Be careful not to stand near any walls or trees because it might just cause the meteor to explode instantly when cast on top of the boss. This boss just deals tons of group damage and also heavy tank damage. Keep in mind the room is huge, the boss will not reset, so don't be afraid to drag him really far if you're running out of space from the fire. The last area is guarded by several caster mini-bosses. The main mechanic of these mobs is Lightning Storm. It just pulses incredibly high AoE damage to your entire group. Big healer cooldowns, defensives, and health potions will likely be needed because these guys hurt. There are 3 of the lightning channelers and 2 of the flame channelers that have to be killed. The flame ones are pretty easy, they have a cast that you just need to kick. The final boss is one of the most difficult bosses on the beta right now, but it's received some nerfs and hopefully shouldn't be too hard when the game goes live. It's a 2-boss fight, but when one of them reaches 50, the guy jumps on top of the dragon and they fight together in a phase 2. The dragon is the scary one, so you mostly want to focus it even though it's flying around a bit. The dragon has a debuff that it applies to players, dealing damage and then dropping a pool of fire under their feet. Once phase 2 starts, every time the dragon uses that debuff, it gets applied to everyone at the same time, causing total chaos. I'd recommend saving Bloodlust for phase 2, and like I said, focusing the dragon down for this reason. The guy has a tank hit that puts a stacking magic debuff that makes the tank take more damage, so that needs to be dispelled often. He also casts Interrupting Cloudburst, which does light party damage, but also interrupts any spell casting. It's a really tough healer fight with lots to juggle between the dispels and the interrupts and the puddles and the debuffs. Once you finish with the dragon though, the fight becomes very easy, and then you're done with the dungeon. That covers my quick rundown on the Ruby Life Pools dungeon for Dragonflight. I hope it was helpful. If you think there's anything else important that I missed, or you were just triggered by my poor pronunciation of the mob names, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and happy keying, friends.
This Jeep that they're advertising on TV right now starts at $100,000.
Hello friends, this is Growl. In this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about the Azure Vault for Mythic Plus and Dragonflight. I've been testing all of the dungeons on beta, and I wanted to make a quick and easy to understand guide for Dragonflight release. If you want to experience these new dungeons spoiler free, by all means go ahead. That's the fun way to play anyway. No matter how well you play, that jerk tank who woke up on the wrong side of the bed is still going to blame you for the bad dungeon run and rage quit anyway. Remember, this video covers Mythic mechanics, so some may be missing if you're running the dungeon on normal or heroic first. This dungeon features several rooms with frozen mobs and patrolling whelps. You can choose to activate the whelps to summon the mobs or simply just walk by them. Generally, I found that these mobs were pretty tough and we avoided them when possible. If you do happen to activate these and die, I'd recommend taking it slow because there's lots of mobs in these rooms. We'll cover what these mobs do later on. Early in the dungeon, you'll come up against Conjured Lashers. These mobs have a single cast that's incredibly deadly and should be stopped. Mystic Vapors puts a stacking dot on your entire party for each cast that goes off. Remember to use stuns, fears, and everything you have to disrupt them. The Arcane Tender mobs have a cast that needs to be interrupted or you'll eat a long stun and become a tree. Other than that, there's not too much scary stuff all the way until the first boss. After clearing the room, the boss will become active. Laymore summons crystal sprouts around the room. Each player will get knocked back and get a large circle that they can use to clear the sprouts if they stand next to them. The boss will also do a tank frontal, which the tank can aim to clear these sprouts. You want to clear as many as possible before the consuming stomp cast. It's going to blast your party with damage based off of how many sprouts are still alive. The fight continues like this over and over until the boss dies or you die. As you progress deeper into the vaults, your party will start to get infused with some strange magic. These are small buffs that may change your character's appearance or make your life slightly easier or harder by like slowing you or increasing your haste. Be sure to read the buff that you get once you see it. There are a lot of dangerous swirlies and ground effects in this area that can be hard to see. On top of that, the Rune Seal Keeper casts icy bindings which roots you and your entire party, so this must be interrupted. These Crystal Fury mobs are the same rock golems that we saw earlier in the dungeon. These mobs have an incredibly dangerous frontal cone that stacks a debuff on whoever is hit, so try and stay away from the tank. The elementals will cast Waking Bane. It's a sleep that can also be dispelled by the healer. Take the books to travel from platform to platform until you reach the second boss area. Make sure to clear the entire boss room. Most of the mobs that you'll run into here will be similar to mobs earlier in the dungeon. Azure Blade, the second boss, is very straightforward. It has a frontal and a cleave that you need to dodge. Occasionally it'll summon an ad that you need to kick and eliminate. Every time the boss reaches 100 energy, it goes to the middle of the room and summons 4 ads, becoming invulnerable. During this phase, it pulses heavy damage to the group and shoots orbs everywhere that deal damage on contact, and you need to kill all 4 of the ads to resume killing the boss. For us, this was the most difficult part of the fight, so be sure to save some heavy cooldowns and defensives for it. Once you clear the ads, the fight resumes as normal, rinse repeat. After you defeat the second boss is the fun part of the dungeon. Lots of trash mobs that don't do much and just mostly hit the tank or jump around and do charges. You can pull pretty big here and progress quickly as long as your tank can stay alive. At the end of the chambers, there are 2 breakers that guard the third boss. These are the last trash mobs of the dungeon, so make sure that you have enough count here. They don't do a whole lot, they do have a lot of health, they just kind of beat up your tank. The third boss, Talash Greywing, is one of my favorite fights. It's a very heavy healing intensive boss that acts as sort of a DPS race. Repeatedly, each player is going to get Frost Bombs, which is a debuff that deals damage to you and then drops ice at your feet. This ice hurts really bad, so you want to be spread out, but still close enough together so that you're not taking up too much room with the ice. Occasionally, the boss will also pick a target and use Icy Devastator, which is simply just a beam of AoE damage. Be sure if you're picked that you are out of the group and you also have a defensive active. When the boss reaches 100 energy, it flies to the middle of the room and casts Absolute Zero. This does lethal damage to your entire party unless you're standing on one of the 4 glowing runes. Be sure not to cover any of these runes with the ice from the bombs, as you need to use all 4 of the runes in the room in order to get them all to recharge. So if you skip one of them and go all the way around, all 3 are still going to be broken. The ice will very slowly melt in the room, so it'll give you your space back. The main challenge of the fight is just keeping up with all the healing while not covering up or skipping any of the runes. After you finish the fight, you'll go right away into the final boss. Umbral Skull has gone over a few changes in the beta, so I apologize if the boss isn't exactly as it is in the video as it happens on live. Everyone in the party receives a stacking slow debuff that goes to 70% slow whenever they move. So you need to be more careful with your movement here. If you don't move for 10 seconds, the debuff will get removed. The boss summons crystals occasionally which need to be destroyed or they will blow up, dealing heavy party damage depending on how many are active. In the beta, we tended to drag the boss to the side of the room, that way the crystals would kind of clutter in one area. There's also a boss frontal, as well as orbs that move around the room that needed to be avoided, which can be difficult if you're very slow. There's also a nasty tank debuff that should be dispelled whenever possible, making it harder to dispel slows as a healer. So slow removal like Freedom is really helpful for this boss. Don't get hit by stuff, clear the crystals, and you win. That's the end of the dungeon. That covers my quick rundown of the Azure Vaults dungeon for Dragonflight. I hope it was helpful. If you think there's anything important that I missed, or you were just triggered by my low efflorescence uptime in the background footage, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching, and happy keying, friends. Hello friends, this is Growl. In this video, I'm going to rank each healer from best to worst for Dragonflight Mythic Plus based off of my testing on the beta. I've done my best to give each healer multiple opportunities to try and heal different dungeons at a high level to see which one has what it takes to heal the highest keys. Keep in mind I'm ranking them based off of their performance in those high keys. Some healers might be great for pugs or very fun to play and not ranked very high. I'll try and give a detailed breakdown on each healer so you can understand exactly what's good or bad about them, talking about how they perform in high keys, pugs, as well as what utility they bring. I'll also try and mention how fun they are and how difficult they are. However, keep in mind those are just my opinions. Real quickly, for me, the two biggest deciding factors for where the healers rank is their AoE burst party healing and their damage. When doing high keys, you have to be able to heal those really tough bosses that deal huge amounts of unavoidable damage. Doing like spike emergency healing to one target isn't that important when we're assuming that we're doing high keys, playing with a more organized group that's handling those kicks and those mechanics. When it comes to unavoidable damage though, Dragonflight has some really nasty bosses that require an immense amount of HPS. Since the 40% health change earlier in the beta, in my opinion, not every healer can really keep up the same way as you start to heal higher and higher keys. Besides that, as you may know, damage is king. When we're talking about doing the highest keys, whichever healer is doing the most damage is going to make your team go the fastest. It's that simple. At the number one spot, I'm going to put Restoration Druid. It's just such an awesome healer.
it. Use it. No, use it. down.